Welcome to the Sisters in Service podcast. My name is Kat Corchado, also known as the voice connecting women veterans nationwide. This podcast is for anyone connected with the military, from veterans, male and female, military spouses, military brats, even parents who may have children who are in the military. As an Air Force veteran, I understand the trials and triumphs that women veterans go through in service and out of service. And so I wanted to find a way that I could put it out there into the airwaves and let everyone know what we're going through and find a way and a solution to what's happening to us in the service. I also like to highlight these women who are business owners, they're entrepreneurs, they're bosses in their business. And so I hope that you will follow me, you will share, and you will subscribe to this podcast, which comes out every week on Tuesdays. And as always, please stay safe, take care of each other until next time. And it's never too late to start your impossible. Welcome, Sisters in Service, to another episode of my podcast. My name is, you guys know my name. I'm Kat Corchado. I am the host. And today I have a treat. And I know I say that every time, but I do. I just have these great guests coming on. So my guest today is Dr. Pamela Hall. She is a forensic and clinical psychologist and a subject matter expert in post-traumatic stress disorder. She's also a speaker, an author of the PTSD Unplugged. We'll talk a little bit about that. And we were laughing because I thought she was a podcast host, but she's a professional podcast guest. So right. Dr. Pam, welcome.
Thank you for continuing my enjoyment of being a guest on podcasts.
The streak continues.
Yes, it does. You have an audience that trusts you to, bring good information that's valuable, useful. And as I've enjoyed some of your podcasts, ladies talking about transitioning from service to us crazies in the civilian world who can't seem to show up on time for anything. but still, I appreciate the service of all of you gals who are doing this difficult task, actually, of working in the military as women. So thank you for your service. And thanks for inviting me on your podcast.
Of course. Dr. Pam and I had quite a long discussion, and I was like, okay, you just have to be on a podcast, and I'm not taking no for an answer. And she kind of laughed at me. Maybe she thought I was joking, but she's here today. So I'm so glad you are here.
At your service.
So let me ask this question. Why did this become such a part of your working life? Like, what was it that made you say, I really want to focus on this in particularly?
Post-traumatic stress disorder. So I entered practice the year after the diagnosis went in the manual. And I had seen my older cousins come home from Vietnam and had seen them be affected by war. And at that time, we weren't even talking about other kinds of trauma that affect people, but we were looking at another generation of young men, predominantly young men who returned from war, and, the whole mixed reception, negative reception that they received. So I was a young person starting in this area where we did not know what to do about coming home from war, other than try to welcome our personal family members home. Well, that was 40 years ago, So over these decades, I began working actually more so with the community in areas of domestic violence and criminal assault recovery and things like that. Because I seem to do okay with that. I seem to be a person who could listen. And I remember a very pivotal moment in how to be helpful, like the question I would go to work with, how can I be helpful today? there was like a pivotal couple of years actually where I was seeing women who had had assault history, and they would get mad at me because why am I bringing this up all the time? Why do I keep bringing this up? What happened to them in the past? And I would say, look, I'm not bringing it up. It's coming up. And so this began my education about what is post-traumatic stress disorder, how it affects people, why events from long ago are vivid and fresh in the present, and is there something we can do about that? Because, folks just lived with it and typically became quiet about it because who would believe them that they were still having nightmares or memories they couldn't get away from. So that just became the life that the work that I did. I worked with communities in batterers treatment intervention when it became the law that folks who were convicted of domestic violence offenses had to attend groups. So I worked with a staff of men and women providing groups that provided practical, real information about how to not get hooked up in that stuff,
Right.
and on from there. So that was a big chunk. In about 2011, 2008, I started doing exams for the VA benefits system. And for 3 years, I did these assessments, and I thought I'd be seeing young people, but I wasn't seeing young people until about 2011, which was interestingly 10 years after 2001, which is when we began this 20-year war.
So you kind of niched down. You just said, I really want it. You kind of niched until it was just about, the PTSD.
Exactly. That's the way to put it. Yeah.
I do have a question for you. A lot of times when there's trauma, not necessarily PTSD, or maybe I'm asking the question that when something happens to you that was traumatic, it not only lives in your brain, but it lives in your body. You carry it around in your body. Is that true about PTSD also?
Yes. So people talk about the D, disorder. Should we call it PTS or PTSD? So PTS, post-traumatic stress. If you really look at the definition, post-traumatic stress is not like we think about work stress or occupational stress or relationship stress. It's post-traumatic stress refers to an event that occurred that was traumatic, and then the reaction or how a person responds or was affected by that event. So if we look at post-traumatic stress, it really just means any reaction that we have after experiencing a traumatic stress, which we can also say a traumatic stress event. So traumatic stress is an incident that occurs one time or in an environment of difficulty, and not just difficulty, but violence, harm, danger. So post-traumatic stress is particularly the ways that violence and danger affect how we approach the world after those things occur to us.
Does post-traumatic stress put you in that fight or flight mode?
So in the moment, so we can just start this defining of things. So in the moment that a traumatic stress occurs, we go into fight-flight mode. We have to also add two more words. So we go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
Oh my!
And
We've
I
expanded.
actually just got the word fawn this year. So I'm always learning, So when we look at an event that occurs, so I'm in a traumatic stress event. Let's say combat right now. So I'm in a platoon, and I'm suddenly in a direct fire event. So you're level. I don't have to explain that one because y'all know what that means.
We know what that is.
So that's the moment that everything got real.
Yes.
or, if cussing's allowed on your podcast, that's the oh fuck me moment, so, and,
Right.
right. And so it pushes your brain, it like immediately sends your brain into, how am I going to survive this?
Mhm.
How am I going to survive this? So am I going to fight? Am I going to run? Am I going to freeze? Like sometimes freezing is good because we sort of disappear into the woodwork and avoid the traumatic stress or the danger. Or am I going to fawn, which means am I going to like play good or play smart, play nice so that this won't happen to me anymore. So that somebody will be nice to me instead of being violent to me. So when I'm if I'm in a combat experience, I'm probably going to fight. I might hesitate, and then I'll think that, oh gosh, now I'm freezing because I hesitated. I might run. Time to retreat, is what we call it when it's an order.
Right.
It's a retreat. So our brain goes into the mode of, how am I going to do one of those things? Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And that's a certain pattern in our brains. It involves certain parts of our brains, essentially this back brain stem area. It's called the polyvagal area. Some people call it the monkey brain. I don't like those words because they make it sound like, we're not
It's not
human
very
grown.
yeah, it's not very serious.
It's,
But
yeah.
how does your brain decide which one of those is appropriate for you at that moment? Because you go fight, flight, what was the other one?
Freeze
Freeze.
or
So
fawn.
how does your body understand which one is appropriate for you to take action at that moment?
So service members are so equipped for these kind of events to occur. That's all that repetitive training that
Mhm.
I frankly don't have the body for. But you all go through these repetitive exercises. You do it on the gun range, you do it in field trainings. It started in boot camp where they said, no, you don't climb walls that way. You climb walls this way. You crawl through mud like this, not like that. And then they practice you and practice you and practice you. So you develop a body memory for,
Right. So you don't have to think about it. It's more of a reaction.
yeah.
Wow. I love that. Let me go back to the Vietnam vets for a second. I'm sure they came back, and back at that time, I guess the acronym PTSD was out there, but no one really knew what it was. So I love the fact that you say PTSD doesn't care how stoic, brave, smart, quick, commanding, or strong you are. PTSD can happen to anyone. So I'm assuming, and I shouldn't assume, that this is more because we talk about it more today, that people are more apt, I would think, to go seek help. But during that time, during Vietnam, people just held on to that. Are you seeing that? Are you still seeing Vietnam veterans that have finally just said, I can't deal with this anymore? I need some help?
What I saw in those first 3 years that I was working in VA benefits, we were catching up on what turned out to be 3 million.
Wow.
3 million.
Talk about a backlog.
Yeah. And so we worked, there was a period in time from 11 to 13, we were asked to work extra hours and to just help catch up on what was quite a backlog. Now exams or benefits are filed and are turned around in a much quicker time frame. But what I saw during that first 5 years was Vietnam veterans, Korean veterans, and World War II veterans
Oh my.
who were experiencing medical issues related to injuries they sustained, because now they're 70, 80 years old. Not so much 90 at that point, but that we were getting there to 90. Guys from Korea were experiencing pain in their toes, and it was activating war memories. So they had been doing pretty good through their lives, keeping this stuff to themselves, not speaking, but having families, probably having multiple marriages, probably having multiple careers or jobs, because it can be really difficult to sustain relationships with post-traumatic stress reactions. But they were more activated Vietnam guys coming in because, honestly, trigger warning here, they were contracting prostate cancer. And there was this feeling amongst these vets at 70, 80, this war is going to kill me still. It was tragic. So it really heartbreaking to hear. And then as they began talking about their war experiences, these stories just were so vivid. These weren't stories. These weren't like...
These were memories.
These were
so vivid.
Vivid memories. This is what happens with the post-traumatic stress reaction. So your brain goes into that fight, flight, freeze. The thing that your brain doesn't do when you go into danger is start developing a longer term memory. There are things your brain doesn't do when you go into that. You don't care what time it is, what day it is. You don't care if how this is making you feel. You know, you're not like, especially all vets, you don't go into these circumstances saying, well, how does this make me feel? That if I could wipe one question off of therapist lists for vets, it would be that question.
How do you feel about that?
How do you feel about that?
Seriously?
That is not a question vets are very interested in answering. More so, how is this disrupting your life is the question.
That's a better question.
It is a better question. So they were vividly telling me stories about specific incidents that had occurred. And they would start like this. Well, there was that day. One day I was on they didn't call them forward operating bases then, a FOB. They were outposts. And, you know, there was a day on this outpost, or there was a day in Fubai, or there was a day, in the South Pacific. I once talked to a guy who carried a flamethrower onto an island in the South Pacific. And so there was that day that I brought the flamethrower onto the island. And then comes the story with all the feelings and
emotions,
smells, like all the senses of what happened there. And I began learning that these traumatic stress events become encapsulated as a moment in time, frozen in time. A moment in time, frozen in time, into a thing that that is called trauma memory in my profession, but that word is not used enough. Have you ever heard that word before? Trauma memory, Kat?
No, I haven't.
So I'm kind of doing informal polls on this word because this is what happens. That moment of going from I'm okay, now I'm defending my life, gets stuck on repeat. It gets stuck on a loop. It doesn't become a long-term memory that fades over time. You know, we all experience different kind of things. They're horrible. Maybe a divorce, maybe the loss of a parent, we grieve through them, and our feelings later are less strong than our feelings were when they occurred.
Right.
With a traumatic stress event that gets stuck on repeat, that traumatic memory is a moment in time, frozen in time, full of the sights, sounds, smells,
colors, everything,
the way your skin feels.
Oh my gosh.
So you think about Vietnam, humidity. So then a guy will talk about how he's in a hot, humid climate, and that activates these memories. So you talk about it. So I do a lot of work outside of Los Angeles near the deserts. So the guys and gals now, because starting in, I think it was 2005, women began riding in convoys. So, and participating in direct fire action, and being, we're on the guns and doing all the work that the guys were doing. So now it's the guys and the gals talking about when it is particularly hot, over 105 degrees, and it's dry outside. Just the feel of the air can activate a war memory.
It becomes so detailed, the way they say things, and the way they describe things.
Yeah. It's like it is happening now. It's a neuropsychological thing. This is probably the biggest word I'll use. I might say amygdala. I might
Okay.
say
You get
hippocampus.
one. That was your one.
Okay. There are like 3 very important words. They're big ones. But they're important ones. And I think we need to really start talking about post-traumatic stress in this way, because once that memory gets caught in a loop, you're in a neuropsychological process where your brain can't tell the difference between trauma memory and what's going on here. So in the worst case scenario, what's going on around us just fades out of awareness.
It's like blurred. It's blurred.
This is where we, the stereotype of severe post-traumatic stress disorder, where someone is standing with a branch in the backyard and they think they're holding their AK-47 or something. And that is a real thing that happens. It's rare.
Let me ask you this question. So there might be some people out there that, have been to Afghanistan. They've been deployed maybe once, maybe several times. They're now out of the military. They're trying to live a regular life, whether they're still in the military, maybe they're out of the military now. If this was me, and what would some of the symptoms of PTSD, how would I know that maybe I have PTSD?
Like just thinking about how you are when you confront danger. You're alert. You're not going to go to sleep. You're not going to care so much if your internet is working. You're probably not going to get hungry. These are the symptoms. The symptoms are the naturally occurring things that we experience, that the way our body reacts to danger. These things, when they become persistent, when the trauma memory gets embedded, that nugget is in your not memory. It's in your brain, but not memory. It's trauma memory. Then you go into the same kind of body postures, or like you were saying before, body memory, the body reaction. So if you have muscle memory, I called it body memory a minute ago, but what you all develop is muscle memory.
Yes.
So let me correct myself. So you go into that muscle memory and you respond. So what are the highlights? So people know they're looking over their shoulder. They hear a loud noise. It makes their heart skip, and you think about Iraq. I mean, everybody gets startled. Yes. When I get startled, I don't think about Iraq. I think about, why are you startling me?
What was that stupid noise? Why are they waking me up?
Can you please be quiet right now?
Right.
But if I have, if I'm still post-traumatic stress affected, I'll think of what happened. So you go into muscle memory type behaviors. So you're not sleeping well. It's hard to fall asleep. Or maybe you exhaust yourself because you worked out, because that yay y'all.
Yeah. I don't think she's a fan, y'all. I'm just saying.
I do sit on my behind for a living. But so you work out so you can fall asleep, so a lot of times folks can correct the beginning part of sleep by working out or just tiring themselves out. But then you wake up in the middle of the night. And I'm telling you, it's such a pattern that it's part of my macro for this. 2, 3 in the morning, I wake up. What's waking you up? I don't know. So if that's happening to you, can you fall back to sleep?
Probably not.
I have to get out of bed. Or they say, so what's waking you up? Well, I heard something and you have to go look and see what it is. Mm-hmm. You're in your home in, Dayton, Ohio, but you have to get out of your bed to see if somebody's invading your house. And you're also thinking about Iraq, or you're thinking about Afghanistan, and you're trying not to.
Right.
But if you stop and think about it too much, then you're thinking about what happened. So that's the other part. But
I had a
yeah.
friend of mine that she has PTSD, and she was telling me about an incident. She was at her house, and they usually didn't do 4th of July,
Mm,
all the firecrackers and everything. But this year they decided to do it there, but nobody told her. And all of a sudden they're going off, and she said she immediately hit the ground. She just hit the floor. And
right.
she was covering her head, and her kids were
Right.
like, "What's wrong?" And she said she didn't even think about it. She just did it. And it
Don't worry
was
about.
just,
She could start
yeah,
saying, "Don't worry about it, honey. That was just muscle memory."
yeah, yeah. Well,
that is a perfect example of muscle
mhm,
memory.
yeah.
What do you do when there's incoming?
Mhm.
You hit the ground. Why do you hit the ground? Because shrapnel flies up here.
Yeah, it's get low, get low.
Get low.
Here's the other question. So if this, I'm going to use myself as an example again. I am exhibiting symptoms of PTSD. How does my family kind of intervene? What kind of things can family do or say to, is it a simple conversation? Is it several conversations? Is to bring it to the forefront of my mind that I keep exhibiting this, but I don't know why. What can the family do?
Well, I think a lot of vets, like people suspect that vets have PTSD when they don't. So the D comes into play when it's disrupting your life. So if it's disrupting your life, it's probably telling you that is your family. So
I like post-traumatic stress disruptor.
I like that.
I
I
like that
like,
a lot better. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intervene. I was like, I
yeah,
like that word.
yeah. Well, doctors, they got to make it all about disorder so that we have a job,
Yeah, I hear you.
but that's not the only, you're right. So there's like this threshold over which if you're doing enough of these things, then diagnostically, and we can talk about the diagnosis later. You asked about family. I almost want to just throw that back to you, Kat, because I think family members don't know what to do. So their first question is going to be more a civilian question, if you will, right?
Got it.
So what is a civilian going to say? They're going to say, "How are you feeling?" And the
Talk to
vet's going
me.
to be, "Talk to me about your feelings."
Right.
And
And
so I'm
that's
going
not
to say,
happening.
"Don't ask that." And I think that our family members could use a whole lot of training about how to be there for somebody. So to me, the question to ask is,
Mhm.
what's happening?
And
What's
why?
what are you thinking about? Like, just get really immediate.
Mhm.
Like, let's not talk about, let me not assume that the war is bothering you right now.
Right.
Let me just ask you, what's happening?
What's going on right now?
What are
Yeah,
you thinking about?
I love
And
that.
and then if they're like, the war, they won't say that. Vets won't tell civilians that.
Mhm.
They don't want to bother us.
Yeah, we're not ones to complain a
Yeah,
lot,
yeah.
but let me, this question came to mind. Is there such a thing as, I know you treat people suffering from PTSD individually. Are there any kind of family therapies that help the whole family with PTSD? I'm just asking because I don't know.
No, it's perfect. Are you familiar with the vet centers?
Yes.
So the vet centers sprung up in the 80s, because Vietnam guys were not getting a great welcome at the VA. And so a bunch of vets got together and put together the vet centers. So the vet centers are run by vets, for vets. They're funded by the VA. So that's the number one. And if anybody wants to look into these folks, they're on YouTube telling you what they're doing. They're, for the most part, I hear great things about the vet centers. So the vet centers have a broad range of services. So they have direct services for the veterans, meaning one-on-one conversations with vets who have been there, or if they haven't been there, they get it. And they have family education meetings. So families need to get educated about this stuff that we just talked about. Mm-hmm. What is post-traumatic stress? We're afraid of post-traumatic stress right now. We're afraid of the symptoms. We're afraid the stigma is so negative still. We send people to get help, rather than get involved in a conversation with our veterans about this stuff. So the Vet Center has these educational pieces and support groups for spouses and family members of vets who are accessing services there. So it's kind of a wraparound kind of a service in the best model. Does the VA provide that? They provide educational resources. Well, I'll tell you what, doing these exams, so I've done 7,000 exams since 2008, which just means I showed up to work a whole lot. And there was a point in 2013 where I just said to myself, look, you're going to do this job until we're out of Afghanistan and Iraq. And you're going to do this job so that you know the scope of the situation. And one of the things I learned as a trend is that people don't educate themselves about post-traumatic stress. That's what eventually made me write the book that I wrote, because I wanted to put in veteran language, like how we're talking right now, using things like muscle memory, like when shrinks talk about mindfulness and relaxation techniques. In my book, I talk about going to the gun range and how you take a deep breath and you put everything out of your mind, except what you're focusing on, the target you're focusing on. That is what we mean by
being in the zone.
It just get in the zone.
Get in the zone.
Thank you. Get in the zone. Yeah. And so what can family members do? We have to learn how, vets got to learn how to get in the zone to deal with post-traumatic stress and the trauma memory that circles. The zone being staying focused on what's going on today. And our family members need to learn how to say, stay with me, because these memories want to suck you in. Yeah, they just want to suck you in. It's a neuropsychological thing. So this is why it doesn't matter who you are, how strong you are. It's just the way our brains work. The more traumatic stress events you experience, the more likely it is to occur. If you have traumatic stress events when you're a kid, the more likely it is that it's going to happen to you when you deploy if you have these, experiences during service. But that is the one thing. Prior exposure is the one consistent, what makes it more likely to occur. But for the most part, it has to do with, it's just how our brains work.
So I was thinking about this, when you were talking about when someone goes through PTSD, and I was thinking of hot flashes. So I was dumb enough to think that I could stop it in its tracks, and it's just one of those things you got to ride the wave. Is having an occurrence of PTSD like that, you have to just ride the wave and hopefully someone is holding your hand and saying, I'm here with you?
That is a great model, Kat. And thanks for reminding me about hot flashes. So, I am old enough to be on the other side of those.
Not that I'm old enough to have them. I'm just saying,
I'm happy to say I'm old enough to be on the other side of those.
Right? I know. Me too.
You're absolutely right, and I am now going to steal that from you. Because for women, and let's say, a lot of spouses are female, they might be too young to know what a hot flash is.
That's true.
They might think all they need is like a little fan, So it is absolutely right. It's like once it starts, it's almost like your body has to go through the whole memory. And in fact, it is better for you to play the whole memory out once you're in it. And if somebody is with you who will stay with you, then they will help you to not get all the way sucked into it. So we'll be doing this, the technical way to call it is a five sensory connection to the present. So connect with your five senses. I see this stuff going by on Instagram all the time, right? So providers online putting these things out there, the five sense connection. Look around you. If you're caught in a trauma memory, what do you see? What do you smell?
What do you
What
hear?
do you hear?
What do you feel?
What do you feel? The feel part is, what does your skin feel? And what do you taste? Taste is the fifth one. So often we don't, what do you taste? So sometimes, honestly, smoking a cigarette will activate a trauma memory because somebody was in the smoke pit while they were, when the alarm goes off and incoming. So, some people can actually be activated to post-traumatic stress symptoms when they're smoking a cigarette.
So let me ask about sexual trauma. If someone is suffering from PTSD and is suffering from a military sexual trauma, how does that, do they have more of an instance of this happening more frequently? How does that work?
All right. So MST is the acronym for military sexual trauma, which is the unfortunate reality that this is so common that the government has given us an acronym for it.
Oh, we love our acronyms.
Don't we love our acronyms? So MST would be the traumatic stress. So traumatic stress is MST. MST is traumatic stress. So to have post-traumatic stress following an MST event it's a different, every kind of traumatic stress event kind of creates a different response pattern. So the pieces to MST that are so painful for women and the men also who report this is the betrayal.
Yes.
To cut to the chase on that one. All the stuff I've already expressed about what is post-traumatic stress, symptoms and a disorder, it's the same pattern for MST. It's just a different beginning point. So combat is a beginning point. MST could be a beginning point. Accidents on the flight deck. The things that occur in field training, these kind of accidents are also traumatic stress events. So MST carries with it this additional burden of having been betrayed by people who were supposed to have your back.
Right.
So if they're the one additional complexity that's in every MST situation is trust problems.
Yes.
Like, who can I trust now when my brothers, sisters at arms were not protective of
Protecting
me?
you, yeah.
Or were, so it's not just the experience of the assault, it's also the experience of the military handling sexual.
Exactly.
So, it is a systemic problem in the military that really requires so much attention.
Right.
I know.
I'll volunteer if they'll hire me,
I will volunteer too. If you want to have an action committee for what the hell to do about that, I'll start with this. Believe women.
Yes.
Believe women.
Period. This is so fascinating to me. Fascinating in a way of learning because I didn't have any post-traumatic stress, and so learning about this, like you said, you got to open that book or ask those questions. So I'm sure these questions might seem elementary, but these are questions that I would ask because I just want to know. Before we go, let's talk about your book a little bit. Is it out? Where can we get it? Talk about your book a little bit.
It's on Amazon. You can get it in Kindle or hardback. If you're a veteran, you can get it by asking me for it, and I'll send you one for nothing. No shipping, nothing. Actually, my son did a fundraiser for me last year, and we got to buy a whole bunch of books, and we still have about 30 books left, so get them while they last. But I was able to buy like 200 books off of it's interesting because Bets won't even ask for a free book, so come on.
Yeah, it's we're like, yeah, I'm good. I'm gonna ask. I want a book.
I will send you a book.
I'm not afraid to ask. I'm like,
Yes,
can I get a book, please?
yeah. So just DM us. So we're on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. DM me either place or email ptsdunplugged@gmail.com.
And that is a perfect way to end our session today. Dr. Pam, this has been fascinating. It's so, I'm a lifelong learner. And when I don't know about something, I will go out and try to learn as much as I can about it. But it's great to have experts on right here in front of me that I can ask these questions to get the real deal. I don't have to sift through all of these things on the internet. But you've already put your contact information out there. Any last words for our audience before we go?
If you have any questions about post-traumatic stress symptoms or post-traumatic stress disorder, send me a note. Kat, if you get a lot of questions off of this, I'm happy to come back and answer all the questions.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I think that would be awesome.
I also have not experienced a traumatic stress event. I don't experience post-traumatic stress disorder. I have seen it operating in not all 7,000, thank goodness, because not everybody is diagnosed with PTSD because not everyone has that whole set. But to see this happening over and over again, war is hell. Sexual assault is deeply wounding. And to be surprised that there would be a long-standing effect, this would be what I would say. Let's stop being surprised.
Yeah.
Let's warmly accept and believe that our folks are troubled by these things, not because they're weak, but because that's what their brain did to survive. And let's honor that, honor their service, and provide the good resources to be able to stay with us and let these traumatic memories begin to be processed and fade over time.
Well, Dr. Pam, thank you for the mic drop right there. And for anyone listening, you heard Dr. Pam. If you have questions, if you want to reach out, maybe we'll do another session where we could, answer some questions, or we'll make sure that we have our contact info in the show notes. But as always, please stay safe, take care of each other. Until next time, and it's never too late to start your impossible.